was going on about occlusion testing.
Yes, that's right. Standard lung function tests involves closing the airway with a special shutter during sleep for a short period of time to see how the baby's breathing pattern responds to that. It's a standard lung function test developed for use in babies in the USA and Europe and the UK over years, and it was absolutely standard test.
I wanted to get another doctor's take on the documents Dee had shown me. Dr. Paul Johnson collaborated with David Southall in his early career, when they were both involved in researching early childhood development. He has a very different view on occlusion testing.
It was not standard in infants then. That's a fact.
Yeah.
People were doing it. It was exploratory. Then you've got to ask, are the people doing it, you know, trained and competent in it?
Have you ever done this occlusion test?
Oh yes, I've done the test with others on other sets of babies.
Yes.
And the results have been published by others more than by us in standard lung function tests, books. This is standard way of doing it, it's an ethical way, etc.
So, occlusion testing is in that protocol?
Yes, but the problem, this is not as, there's no way is this a standard occlusion test.
What do you mean?
Well, it says there will be 5 occlusions, each lasting 10 seconds in duration. That by definition goes over several breaths. The occlusion test was not devised for that purpose. It was devised to be used for a fraction, usually a fraction of a second, at different phases of breathing to see what the reflex response is and what the lung function was. This is, dare I say, a very liberal extension of occlusion test.
There's different lengths of time that they could be occluded, the airway, during sleep, but none of them would lead to any harm to the baby. In fact, the baby would probably not wake up. It would be difficult to measure the effect if they did wake up.
You can trigger an event by doing that, for sure. I've done it in lambs. You can trigger an event for which you've got to be prepared to get that child out of that situation.
Normal babies during sleep regularly stop breathing for 10 seconds. It's normal. So, as far as I'm concerned, any extrapolation to lambs under anaesthetic, where he's doing these tests, or lambs during sleep, is not relevant to a human infant. It was also the standard test at the time, even though more modern equipment will use shorter occlusion test times.
This is not a routine test, and I'm sorry, I'm really very surprised to see that. And therefore, is that what's been going on all the time he's done an occlusion test? Because that isn't what's meant by occlusion test.
Right. Thanks.
Good. You have a good day.
Whatever the methods of occlusion testing used by Dr. Southall then, the test is more tightly regulated today.
What are they for? What have I got to do with them?
Dee showed me another document which she said the police investigating Ben's case were particularly interested in. This letter from Dr. Southall to the Ethics Committee seeks permission for him to conduct research without getting parents' written consent.
We do not intend to seek written consent from those parents participating in this project.
From previous experience, this is anxiety-provoking and leads to a high failure rate.
I gave the letter to Dr. Johnson, a veteran of many research studies, to see what he made of it.
All I can say is, wow, 1985. The outcome of this should have been that they should have had a letter explaining it to sign, or the project should have not been allowed.
But why would somebody ask for that?
Oh, well, I think it's arrogant, it's outrageous. I mean, that's 19th century thinking, not even 20th century thinking. I'm truly astonished to see this.
A lot of research was done on the basis of, I ask permission, and they say yes or no. The word written is the key here. Written consent. So in 1985, you could go to a parent and say, I want to do this test on your baby. The test does not involve any risk to your baby or anything invasive. Would you be willing for this to happen? Yes or no? And they might say, well, tell me more about it, and you would tell them all about it. And then they would say, I don't like the sound of that, or I'm happy to help you if it's going to help other babies, without any signed consent being undertaken at that time. The word is written.
Dr. Johnson maintains that without a signature it's impossible to prove whether the parent was properly informed about the nature of the research.
The point is, the investigator is absolutely obliged, first of all, to have had permission for the research, and secondly, to have explained it and got the proper signatures to do that research. If he hasn't done that, then the person on the end of this will never know what is clinical care and what is research.
I'm getting very concerned about what you're asking here. In those days, it was very common with non-invasive research to use the phrase informed consent. And this was informed. Doesn't mean you could do it with...
Why are you getting concerned about what I'm asking here? What do you mean by that?
Well, because what I feel is that the whole tone of this whole programme that you're making has suddenly changed to become rather negative.
That particular research study...
Dr. Johnson and Dr. Southall have a charged history, trading blows as opposing experts in various courtroom battles over the years.
I don't know whether it's on or off the record. He is not a trained scientist. He's never been trained by anybody, trained himself. He happened to be in a fairly prestigious place, the Brompton, but they didn't know anything about what he was doing.
I'm not going to answer negative remarks made by Professor Paul Johnson. I'm not. If he wants to make remarks, he can make them to me direct, not through a television programme. Sorry. I'm not prepared to go into it anymore. There's no point.
So,
you can look at my CV, you'll see the papers I published in Paediatric Clinical Physiologist. I became a reader in Paediatric Clinical Physiologist in the lead National Heart and Lung Institute in the UK. I don't have to justify to Professor Johnson or to you or anybody else why or how that happened. It's a matter of history. And it's a long time ago now as well. That's another problem. Talking about things so long ago is difficult.
So you're saying it's not true that you're a self-trained scientist?
No, it's not. I've worked with lots of people. I worked with some of the top people in the UK and the US.
Has his research damaged children?
I think it probably has damaged some.
David dismisses Dr. Johnson's claim as nonsense. He spent his entire career defending himself against a myriad of allegations and complaints. However, he was now facing the most important trial of his professional life. He'd appealed against the GMC's decision to strike him off, and the High Court was about to rule on it. On the day of his result, I went to see Penny Mellor. It was going to be a big day for both of them.
You have a system in place, did you say?
What, in terms of how I'll know?
Yes.
Yes, somebody that's in the courtroom is going to put their phone on quickly and text me X for yes, he's off, and obviously no for no, he's got back on, we've lost.
Paediatrician Dr. David Southall. He has lost his High Court battle against a decision to strike him off the medical register.
Good God.
The General Medical Council struck him off in 2007 after he accused a mother of drugging and murdering her 10-year-old son. Hadrell, he was guilty of serious professional misconduct, and that news just coming on.
The GMP panel said Dr. Southall had a deep-seated attitudinal problem. He's been fighting through the High Court, but as we were just saying, he has lost his High Court battle. That decision stands.
Oh my God, they'll be in bits now. They're not going to be all right, are they? They're in a right state, Janet and Janet.
Well, where our standards have not been met, we must and we will act to protect patients and to protect the public interest.
It's the end of the trial of Dr. Southall.
We can move on now, can't we?
Yeah.
Move on.
I mean, it means he is not going to be able to practice medicine, and that to me is just, it's such a relief.
I know, darling, it's coming all over the news. It came straight out. Are you all right? Is Janet all right, love? Okay, sweetie pie. Bye, lovey. Okay, bye. Just gonna ring back. Bye. Yes, yes, I'm all right. No, you're not. Hiya, Ben. Come on, tell me, what have you got to say about David Southall? Tell me. Breathe, darling, breathe. Breathe in, Ben, and say it again, love. Just take a breath in and then say it again.
We got him.
We got him.
Yeah. What's them for?
Are you going to go and have a cup of tea to celebrate, Ben? We got him, I know, darling. You did, darling, yeah, you got him.